Hey guys, so let's go ahead and get started right away with our section 1.2, where we're talking once again about distributive property. We just want to make sure we understand this completely. So we're going to go ahead and look at a few terms that we've already defined yesterday. All right, so we talked about, let's highlight a few of these terms. So we have coefficients, exponents, terms, and like terms. All right, so those are a few of the definitions that we learned about yesterday. So let's go ahead and talk about those according to this expression. Okay, all right, so right off the bat, I see this 8x here. So it's asking us, what is 8x? All right, so 8x, is that a coefficient, an exponent term, or a like term? All right, well, right off the bat, I can tell that it's right. Let me see if I can highlight that. It's right here. Well, as it stands right now, that's just a, what is that? That's just a term. All right, it's just a term. It's not a coefficient, it's not an exponent, and it's not like terms because it's not more than one. It's just one term. All right, now if we go on to number 2, it's asking us for this 5. What is that 5? All right, so this 5 actually is a coefficient. All right, so it's a coefficient. It's a number that's in front of a variable term. If you notice, it's right here in front of that x cubed. All right, so in itself, that 5 is just a coefficient. So let's see what we have so far. So we have gotten rid of coefficient. We've gotten rid of term. Whoops, sorry. We got rid of term. And now we have to move on to number 3. So number 3 says, let's see, it says 5x to the third and 7x to the third. So what are those? Well, you might already know by now, but those are like terms. They both have this x to the third variable term, all right? Because they have both of those variable terms, that x cubed, then that means that you can go ahead and combine those because they are like terms. All right, and finally here we have this positive 2 in the degree, and another word for the degree here is exponent. All right, and I'm sure you guys knew that one by now, but now we've officially used all 4 of our terms that we learned about yesterday. So just to kind of recap exactly where we're at. So number 1 was just a term. It was just some term in the expression. Number 2 was this positive 5 that was in front of the x squared, which made it a coefficient. Number 3, we had a 5x cubed and a 7x cubed because they both have an x cubed term. That means they are like terms. And finally, this little 2 on top of the x is just an exponent. All right, so with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and continue with what we learned about yesterday in terms of standard form. And just to recap, all standard form means is in, how do I want to say this? Let's see. Let me rewrite it another way. Terms from highest exponent to lowest exponent. Okay, and the reason why I wanted to rewrite it like that is because, as we talked about yesterday, usually the lowest exponent here is usually the constant, which is another word we talked about yesterday. And we're going to go ahead and recap exactly what that means in a second. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this number 5. It says write in standard form. So the highest degree right away I see is that x cubed, so I'm going to write it down, 6x cubed. Next one I see is that negative 3x squared. Next one, that negative x. And finally that 12. All right, and that's it. That's our answer in standard form. That's all we did. We just kind of rewrote in the right order from largest exponent to lowest exponent. All right, next one. Right away, I see that 81x to the fifth. 81x to the fifth. Okay. Next one, next highest one I see is that negative 9x squared. And finally, this 17x. So I've officially written that one in standard form. All right, so let me go ahead and erase all this right here. All right, next one. Again, we're just increasing the number of terms, but the same thing applies, right? We still have to find the highest term first. So negative m to the eighth. Next one is this m to the fourth, so negative 6m to the fourth. Next one is positive 21m to the third. And like I said earlier, usually the last term, if there is one, is the constant. So we have our final answer here. All right. So why don't you go ahead and try out number 8 on your own, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the answer in just a second. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and make sure we did this one correct. So I look for the highest variable term. Right away, I see that f7 is the highest exponent. Next one is this f3. So I'm going to go ahead and write plus 25 to the third. And finally, this 20f here in the end. Okay? So that's it. We went ahead and rewrote something in standard form. All right? So let's go ahead and continue on with the next set of problems. All right, so what is it saying? It says, simplify each expression and write all answers in standard form. So now that it says simplify each expression, we're probably going to have to combine a few like terms here. So let's go ahead and see if we can find like terms. But again, because we want to do this in standard form, let's start from the highest exponent. So right away I see that x cubed, and I don't see any other x cubed, so I'm going to go ahead and write negative 7x cubed. All right, cool. Next one. I see an x squared term here, and I see an x squared term there. So negative 8 minus 3 is a negative 11 x squared. All right, and finally, we have two x terms, which is a negative 3x and a positive 2x. So if you combine them, it's negative 3 plus 2, which is just a negative 1x. Okay? So that is in standard form, but it's also simplified. All right, so you could do both steps at once. Just remember, look for your highest degree first, see if you can combine it with any other of the same degree or of the same with the same exponent, combine them, and then write that one in the beginning and continue on as you go to lower exponents. All right, but if that doesn't quite make sense, let's go ahead and look at one more to see if we can clear that up a little bit. All right, so next one. Right away off the bat, I see the ones with the highest exponents are this negative 9b and this positive 4b. So I'm going to go ahead and write 4 minus 9, which is a negative 5, v to the third. All right, next exponent I see, because again, remember, these v's really have an exponent of 1. Okay, so I'm going to combine those, the 4v and the minus 6v, so that's a negative 2v. And the last thing here is that constant, so I'm going to write a minus 1. All right, now I can understand as an algebra student how a lot of people might think this is intimidating, number 11, but again, it's the exact same thing as we've done before, so there's nothing to be worried about. We're just going to go ahead and do more steps, but it's the exact same steps that we've been doing thus far. All right, so again, highest exponent I see here is that fourth power. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and combine anything that has x to the fourth, so that's 28 plus 3. That's a 31x fourth. Next one I see here is this negative x cubed and negative x cubed. And remember, there's a coefficient. Remember your vocab terms, guys. There's a coefficient of -1 on both of those. So -1 minus 1 is a -2x to the third. All right. We look at this next set of x squareds. So it's 6 minus 4. That's a positive 2x squared. And I believe that takes care of everything. There's no constants, so we don't have to combine anything else. So again, not as hard as we might have originally thought. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and try out number 12 on your own and pause the video for a second. And when you come back, I'll go ahead and go over the answer with you guys. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and combine a few like terms here if we can. So, but first, right off the bat, I see the highest degree here is g to the third, and actually there's no other g to the third, so I'm going to go straight to writing that g to the third. All right, so 12g to the third. Next highest ones I see is these g squared. So 8 minus 5 is a positive 3g squared. Next one are these g terms. So it's 28 minus 11, if I'm not mistaken. That is a 17g, and that should be it. So we have our answer not only simplified, but in standard form, which is what we were trying to accomplish. All right. So the last part of yesterday that we learned was basically distributive property. So we went over it just a little bit, but today we're going to get a little more practice on it. All right. So number 13 through 14 say use the distributive property to simplify the following expressions. So as we talked about yesterday, parentheses really mean multiplication. So if I have this 12 out here, I'm going to multiply the 12 times the x, which is 12x, but also the 12 times the -3, which is actually a -36. Okay, so we're going to basically do the same thing for every single one of these expressions. I'm going to do about, let's say, maybe I'll do a half of these with you guys, and then I'm going to let you try the rest on your own, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and try these out. So 2 times 8 is a, 2 times 14 is a positive 28. All right, let's go ahead and do some more challenging ones together, and I'm going to let you guys try the others on your own. So let's actually skip to number 17. So distribute that. -2 times x is a -2x. -2 times -7. Negative times a negative means it's a positive. All right. Let me just make sure I circle these to show that those are our final answers. Number 18, distribute the 4. So 4 times x is just 4x. 4 times 1 is a positive 4. Now, go ahead and look at number 21. Number 21 says that we have this negative in the front. But what does that really mean? It means we have a -1 in the front. So if I distribute a -1 to this 8r squared, we get, let me actually scroll down for a bit, we get a -8r squared. -1 times r is just a -r, and -1 times -6 is a positive 6. So not too difficult. We just had to remember that that negative in the front of the parentheses, all it means is you have a -1 as the number that you have to distribute. So let's continue with number 22, and then I'm going to have you guys try some on your own. So first one, we get 6b squared minus 48b minus, whoops, sorry about that, minus 54. All right, so 6b squared minus 48b minus 54. Now, the good thing about these is that the terms, or I should say the expression that is inside of the parentheses was already in standard form, so we didn't have to go ahead and rewrite this answer. But remember, If you don't have something in standard form and it does ask you to have it in standard form, remember to go ahead and rewrite it from highest exponent to lowest exponent. Alright guys, so why don't you go ahead and try numbers 15 through 24 on your own. Go ahead and pause the video at this time and try those on your own, see if you can get them right, and then you can come back and see step by step what we did and what the final answer is so you can compare it with your own. Alright guys, let's go ahead and continue with our distributing. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this negative 6 to both of those terms. So you get negative 6m minus 48. Again, all I'm doing is distributing to each one of those terms. For number 16, same thing. Negative 9 times b is negative 9b. And negative 9 times 5 is negative 45. Alright, let's keep going. I think you guys are getting the hang of this. So negative 3x minus 6. You guys notice I'm going a little quicker because I think you guys are pretty good at this by this point. So let's see if we can keep up. So negative 7 times 2, that's a negative 14. But remember you have that x squared there, so you have to rewrite it. And finally, negative 7 times 5 is negative 35, but don't forget that x that was attached to the 5. Okay. Alright. So, next one, number 23. Distribute that negative 9. So you get negative 27x. Negative 9 times negative 9 is a positive 81. Awesome. All right, and just like number 21 that we did earlier, if we have a negative, all right, so if we have a negative, we can just write a little 1 here, and we can distribute the negative 1. So I get negative 4x plus 1, and that is our final answer. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and look at something a little more challenging, but not quite. It just means we have to do a little bit more steps, but we are basically on the same track and on the same kind of steps. Alright, so let's go ahead and do number 25. Let's read the directions first. It's always a good idea to read the directions. Alright, so it says simplify the following expression by distributing and combining like terms. Write the final answers in standard form. So let's go ahead and do that. Right off the bat, we see those parentheses, so let's go ahead and distribute.